Hey there, thinkers! Welcome back to Critical Hit. My name is Est, and well, it's another Hold On to Your Panties episode because we're diving into the Tim Cain rabbit hole. This legendary Fallout creator recently decided to weigh in on the top debated topic: do gamers actually know what gamers want? Well, spoiler alert, because it's a rhetorical question at this point. We've been screaming about this for years. Every time a studio drops yet another game riddled with microtransactions, cut content, or mechanics that no one asked for. And yet, here we are again, dissecting the same debate like it's groundbreaking stuff. Now, don't get me wrong here, because this is a fantastic conversation to have. And it's always worth asking whether devs are in touch with their audience. But the way that Cain approaches this, it's got a whiff of disingenuousness to it, even if only so slightly. But let's be honest here, because the man knows full well that many developers do actually know exactly what gamers want. But they're just too busy pretending otherwise because it's convenient, or worse, profitable. So instead of owning up to bad decisions, these studios pull the classic "it's not me, it's you" routine. They gaslight the hell out of the gaming community with lines like, well, you don't actually know what you want, so how could we possibly know? Like, come on, please. We're supposed to believe that gamers who have been crystal clear about their preferences for years now are suddenly incapable of expressing what they like? So here's the kicker. Gamers aren't exactly subtle about what they want. They showcase it every single day by voting with their wallets. Like, look at the sales figures. Look at the engagement metrics. Look at the sheer backlash or praise games receive online. Like, it's not rocket science. If a game succeeds, it's usually because it gave players what they wanted. And when a game tanks, well, surprise, it's because it ignored that very feedback. But of course, instead of acknowledging this obvious reality, developers act like they're wandering around in fog, desperately trying to decipher some mythical, indecipherable gamer wishlist. Well, the wishlist isn't a mystery. It's plastered all over social media, Reddit threads, the YouTube comment sections, and, well, yeah, the sales numbers. And the problem isn't that gamers don't know what they want, it's that some developers either don't care or they think they know better. So yeah, Tim Cain's video might spark a good conversation, but let's not pretend the question that he's asking is some profound mystery. Like, the truth is, a lot of devs know exactly what we want. They just don't always like the answer. However, I have a few things to say here, but before I do, we have a small request. If you are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button, smashing that like, and ring the bell to be notified for our next video. We would greatly appreciate this, since this will help us appease those YouTube algorithm gods. So we thank you. Now let me give you our thoughts on this, and let's get into this article. So, do developers have even the faintest idea of what gamers want? Well, according to Tim Cain, the answer is no, because apparently gamers are just wandering around clueless about their own preferences. Sure, Tim. Blame the people who are keeping the industry alive with their wallets. But let's get real here for a second. Gamers have been anything but shy about what they want. They've been vocal in forums and social media, in surveys, through reviews, and, well, yeah, by actually spending money on games that they actually love. So if the developers are so out of touch that they're still confused, maybe they should do the bare minimum and pay attention to what's right in front of them. Here's a wild concept. Like, just look at the stats. Check the sales numbers, the engagement data, and the feedback. Like, gamers have made it painfully obvious what they're looking for. Good games with immersive storytelling, engaging gameplay, and no forced political agendas or DEI initiatives that feel like, well, virtue signaling. So they don't want lectures, they want entertainment, and depending on the franchise, they have specific expectations. Whether that's expansive, explorative worlds, or fast-paced Twitch reaction gameplay. But of course, what do so many developers and studios do instead? They chase the mythical new audience, you know, the one that really isn't interested in gaming, but might buy a game if it aligns with their social media vibes. Like, these studios seem hell-bent on reinventing the wheel for an audience that doesn't exist, completely ignoring the core fans who actually love their games and have supported them for years. And the results? Well, developers burn bridges with loyal players who kept their franchises alive in the first place. They alienate their base, fail to capture the phantom new audience, and then scratch their heads when their games bomb. It's a classic case of trying to please everyone and end up pleasing no one. But you know what? At least they get to pat themselves on the back for how progressive their failed product was, right? Well, meanwhile, gamers are left wondering when, if ever, the industry will pull its head out of the sand and remember what actually matters: making great games for people who love to play them. I kid you not, game developers these days seem to think that they're revolutionaries. But instead of creating games that are for a dedicated fan base, they crank out some soulless, watered-down product and then act surprised when no one cares. The plan? Oh, there just isn't one. They just throw it out there, cross their fingers, and hope some magical audience materializes out of thin air. It's like watching someone bake a cake with no recipe and then wonder why it tastes awful. Like their main focus is not making great games. No, it's about checking off the buzzword boxes: inclusive, diversive, representational, as if that alone will save their half-baked ideas. But don't get it twisted here. Diversity isn't the problem. It's the fact that they treat it like a marketing gimmick while completely ignoring the people who actually kept their lights on, the core fan base. This genius strategy results in games so generic and forgettable that they don't resonate with, well, anyone. Instead of building something that feels authentic and connects with a dedicated group of players, they end up alienating their entire fan base. The worst part here is that these are the same fans who would have carried the game to success with their loyalty and enthusiasm if the developers had just, respected them. But here's a radical thought. Maybe figure out your audience from the start. Make a game for them. Yes, them. If it's good, word of mouth will spread naturally, and you might even attract new players along the way. But no, that's apparently too much effort. Instead, they flail around trying to appeal to everyone and predictably fail to appeal to anyone. It's like they're so scared of not being liked by everyone that they forgot how to be loved by someone. So bravo, developers. Really outdone yourself. And Tim Cain went all in here, claiming that gamers are clueless about what they want. His argument here is that gamers are pros at ranting about what they hate, but somehow can't muster the energy to articulate what they actually do want. So according to Cain, simply saying, "I hate this feature" or "I hate these kinds of characters" isn't helpful, because it doesn't come with a neatly packaged wish list attached. It's almost like he expects gamers to double as unpaid game designers. So never mind the fact that gamers have been shouting their preferences for years, louder and clearer than ever. But hey, clearly developers seem to have their ears plugged. Instead of engaging with feedback, developers often act like they, know better, brushing off comments because they don't align with their vision or personal tastes. And when fans dare to criticize, well, they're slapped with dismissive labels like alt-right or other buzzwords to completely shut down the conversation. It's like a bad PR strategy on repeat. Alienate the core fan base and wonder why your game flops, because these same developers then turn around and act shocked when the game loses faith or loses their ability to deliver. Maybe, just maybe, if they stopped dismissing the very people buying their games, they'd realize that feedback isn't the problem. It's the refusal to listen. But sure, and blame the players instead, because it seems to be working out so great for the industry so far. Content creators and gamers have been anything but shy about sharing their opinions about what works and what doesn't in the gaming world. Developers still turn a blind eye to this kind of feedback. But why? Because it doesn't fit within the narrative that they're trying to sell. Rather than focusing on the heart of the gameplay, they're just too busy obsessing over buzzwords like diversity, thinking that they're going to win everyone over. No amount of diversity can save a game that just isn't fun to play. Tim Cain must think gamers are as vague as a cryptic fortune cookie message when they say they want a better game or better AI, because apparently that's not good enough for him. He just goes on to suggest that we just need to be super specific, asking if enemies are just running straight at players without shooting, because if that's the benchmark for what constitutes as actionable feedback, seriously? So now it's our job to break down every tiny aspect of the game in a developer-friendly checklist? But the funny thing is, we already do that. Gamers already do exactly that. Like, take Star Wars Outlaws, for example. Players just didn't say the AI is bad and leave it at that. No, they went into detail, pointing out the flaws like an awful stealth mechanics, enemies that can't be bothered to act intellectually, and damaged systems that feel more broken than a car with no brakes. That's about as specific as it gets, yet somehow developers still claim that that feedback is too vague. So apparently no matter how much we spell it out, it's never enough. Typical. And of course, Tim Cain, in his infinite wisdom, seems to think that gamers should just lazily toss out complaints about the UI by calling it dumb without offering any real insight. But, well, surprise, surprise, this is just another classic case of developers straight up dismissing the feedback instead of taking the time to actually understand it. It's almost like they think gamers are just venting without any real substance behind their words. Because meanwhile, gamers are over here endlessly pointing out what they don't like, suggesting improvements, and giving concrete reasons for their dissatisfaction. Like, if developers can't see the specifics in the feedback, maybe it's because they're too busy patting themselves on the back to actually listen to what's actually being said. So, honestly, Tim Cain's comments are just a glaring reflection of the mess that the gaming industry has created for itself. Like, developers, instead of listening to the people who supported them through thick and thin, are flat out ignoring clear, well-established feedback from gamers. It's like they've decided that their loyal fanbase's preferences are suddenly irrelevant, as if the ones who made their game successful don't have a voice anymore. Instead of doing what actually matters and catering to those who generally care about their games, they've chosen to chase fleeting trends and pander to audiences who couldn't care less. It's almost like they're gambling on a hope that someone somewhere will pick up their half-baked product. Unfortunately, it's not working. This approach is alienating gamers and delivering one lackluster, uninspired product after another. Gamers have made their desires crystal clear, but it seems like developers are just too busy with their trend chasing to listen. So maybe, just maybe, they should start paying attention to the ones who've actually had their backs. However, those are my thoughts on this. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And hey, before you go, subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, and ring the bell to be notified for our next video. As always, this is Est, and I'm signing off now. So I'll see you in the next one. Toodles!